1. So I'm a property manager of the house I live at for a discounted rent. This means that I am in charge of taking care of the property, finding tenants, making sure rents get paid on time. Basic things that a property manager does. So I had a friend who was looking for a place to live with his girlfriend, and since I knew them, I figured I would help them out. I was able to convince the owner to give them a discount on rent, about $300 lower than market value. In exchange, I told my friend that I would need help with maintaining the property. Stuff like maintaining the garden, keeping up with the trash, ensuring the house is kept clean. Pretty basic for a 26 and 28-year-old to do, right? Well, for the first month or so it was perfect. House was maintained. It was like 4 adults lived there. After the 30-day test period went by and we signed a year lease, their true nature surfaced. Saying that I lived with pigs would be insulting actual pigs. It started out small. A bowl left out for a day or two here, some trash accidentally left on the floor there. Then it started accumulating. Suddenly, my basement and garage became the storage space for them, their family, and their friends' stuff. You'd think, hey, at least it's organized and not in the walkway, right? Nope, it was everywhere. I wouldn't be able to get into the garage because a bunch of stuff would be cluttered everywhere. Dishes would be left in the sink for weeks. Bathroom wouldn't be cleaned unless I started doing it. Black mold started growing in the bathroom. Other forms of mold would be growing in the kitchen because they wouldn't clean up after themselves. We'd get ants every day because they couldn't wipe down a counter after spilling sauce. When I did the house walkthrough, their room would look like a tornado and a hoarder had a baby. Slight exaggeration? Nope. Their pet would poop and pee around the house and they wouldn't clean it. The smell was the final straw for me. I didn't understand how I could have 4 cats and 6 litter boxes around the house, yet somehow those areas smelled better than when I walked past their bedroom door. Keep in mind their door led to a staircase and their actual bedroom was upstairs. They must have let trash accumulate for months. Finally, after about 7 months, I sent them a very professional and polite message, saying that after their lease is up, it would not be renewed. I told them we would not be kicking them out, however, if they wanted to move out early, I would accept a 30-day notice, and not do any charge for the early termination, and I offered to give them their security deposit in full, without anything taken out if they left early. That's when the shit hit the fan. One of the tenants completely blew up on me, basically calling me a bunch of names, saying I was a horrible friend and threatening to sue me for breaking the lease. I repeatedly told them I was not kicking anyone out and simply not renewing the lease. The remainder of their time they decided to continue to let the house get worse, and I ended up having to get a cleaning service to help with the house. 2 months prior to their lease ending, they were several weeks late with their rent and coming up with an excuse every time I asked. They gave me their 30-day notice and then told me that because they did me a favor of moving out early, I should waive their rent for the last 2 months. I was livid, but wanted to just get them out, so I paid the owner the money to get them out, costing me an extra $2,100 I shouldn't have had to pay. These people decided that since I apparently owed them more favors, they weren't going to change their address, so it looks like they have a longer residence. So we kept getting their mail for months, which I would just return to the mailman. Then one of the former tenants sent me a message asking me to be their reference for when they apply for apartments, as they'd been saying they still live with me. Why, of course I'll be your reference. I started getting emails daily asking questions about said tenants and whether I would rent to them again. Some of them would include personal statements on what they said about themselves as tenants, and asked me if I agreed with them. Now here's where the malicious compliance comes in. I dutifully did what my prior tenants asked. In fact, I'd say I went above and beyond. I answered the reference questions with complete honesty and even included pictures of the state of the house and conversations. I took every phone interview that was requested. It was quite satisfying hearing the other property managers thank me for my honesty. Last I heard, they are living in someone's basement for almost double of what it's worth. 2. Last year I started working for a local plumbing company that seemed promising. Would pay top dollar to employees for good old-fashioned labor. So I signed my W-2 and went on my way. Seems legit, right? I started out making an hourly wage and was given my own work van and was offered a work cell phone. However, If you used your personal cell phone, the owner of the company would pay your bill because you were using your own phone. How neat is that? Fast forward a month or two. I was forced to make commission based off of every job, and I didn't have a say in this. But 20% of every job you go to? Hell, that's a lot of money in plumbing. So I was none the wiser. Eventually I found out that my paychecks weren't having any taxes taken out of them, so I asked my boss, "Why am I not having taxes taken out of my check?" To which he replied,
"When we switched you to commission, you're a subcontractor now. You're 1099. You're gonna be making so much back now, bro."
Didn't sign a 1099 form, but okay. As the time went on, I started working 90-hour weeks with no break. If my phone was turned off and the office folk tried to reach me and couldn't, they would take money out of my paycheck. The phone bill never got paid. There would be days where I wouldn't make a single dime because the boss would mess something up in our system. We also had no heat in our vans, and when it got to -14 outside, his words were,
"Go buy a fucking blanket. I can't afford repairs like this right now."
While he is in Florida on a cruise with his whole family. So like anyone else, I just up and quit. Fuck that. When I left, I asked for my checks. I was owed 3 of them for the weeks I worked, but my boss wasn't ready to give them up yet.
"You fucked me over and now I'm going to fuck you over,"
he said when I asked why he wasn't going to pay me. I offered multiple times for him to just meet me, so this wouldn't have to go any further. He refused. I took to our legal advice, bless them, and asked what I should do. The responses led me to LARA, Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, to file a wage claim to get my money. But on top of that, I filed a report with them stating the company doesn't pull permits, which it's required to do, when replacing people's plumbing, so they sent over an investigator to check these claims out. I then went to the IRS to find out about this whole tax ordeal. I filed the proper paperwork to have the IRS check and see if I was misclassified as a 1099 employee, when I should have been a W-2 employee, since they weren't taking taxes out. Sure as shit, I was wrongfully not getting taxes taken out of my checks. So the IRS sent an investigator of their own. Now at this point, I see in my phone that I still have their email address linked to my Google account, so I do some snooping. It turns out they haven't paid city taxes in 6 years, and that the office manager, a woman who has verbally abused me time and time again, collects disability through the state but still collects a 1.5K paycheck from the company every week. You can bet I sent that in with the IRS, screenshots included in my email. This is how it all unfolded. I have a friend that still works, or rather worked for them at the time, and he told me about the investigators coming in. Lara fined them upwards of $50,000 for failing to produce the proper permits for work that was performed. They also paid me what the company owed me with interest, since I waited over a month for those checks. On top of all of this, the IRS made them pay for my taxes at the end of the year, took away the office manager's disability, audited them because they haven't paid city taxes, and fined them for each employee they did this to. At this time as well, all of his fleet vans broke due to wear and tear. This resulted in the company closing. When he asked me why I did all of this, my response was simply, "You fucked me over, so I fucked you over." 3. I worked for an events hire company. We supplied everything from AV to display stands, fencing, staging, etc. So I worked with an organizer that was looking to host a beers and wines festival. Had multiple meetings and provided far too many quotes and prices. But eventually it paid off, and signed off to work with us. Fast forward about 2 weeks later. I have had little contact from her, which was very unusual. Out of the blue, she emails me saying that she had found a cheaper supplier, almost half the price, and that we were ripping her off, and if we didn't void the contract and return her deposit, she would take legal action. Our prices were very fair and competitive with our main competition, so this really didn't make sense as to why it would be so insanely cheap. I've had this before, and in my experience it's just best to let these organizers go, rip up the contract, and return the deposit. If you force them to work with you, it becomes an absolute nightmare and just isn't worth it in the long run, as you work with these people for months leading up to the event. The event was still quite a while away, so I was confident I could fill in the spot with another. Anyway, It is now 3 days before the festival opens, and I get a call from our story's CB.
You have to help me. It's CB.
Sure, what's up?
The supplier has arrived to install and the equipment is unusable. The marquees are ripped. Displays can barely stand up. They didn't bring any AV. It's a disaster!
Okay, so before I go back to my team, are you needing everything we quoted you right now?
Yes, everything.
I go back to my team, and although we had a bit on, we agreed we could supply what she needed in the time, but would naturally need to charge a premium because it was late as fuck and meant serious overtime. We didn't want to do it, but pulling her out of the shit would have made waves in our industry, and bound to get good words in the right ears due to the festival's size. So I call back CB. CB, I have great news. We can get down there later this afternoon, and we will work non-stop over the next 2 days to get this done for you.
You're a lifesaver, thank you so much.
Now, we will require 90% upfront payment, and you can pay the remaining 10% after install is complete. I will send you an invoice now, but please know the invoice will be a larger amount than before, approximately 30% more due to overtime and just being late, pretty standard for an event this size. Guess how the mood turns now.
But we had a contract. We have a set amount. You need to honor that.
You made us rip it up and threatened a lawsuit if we made you stick to it. Those are the prices. No other company in this city would be able to deliver what you are asking at this late notice regardless. The price is the price. You can take it or leave it.
This is crazy. We had a contract.
She throws some nasty words my way about how we are useless and going to get sued. You have 2 hours to let me know if you want to move ahead, otherwise the stock will not be available. Goodbye. She never called back and went ahead with the other supplier. Festival was a disaster. She had also charged independent mobile food vendors and retailers to be at this festival and charged them premium for each spot. The vendors constantly lost power, water, and had zero support during the show. So they naturally took her to court to get their money back as they lost money attending the festival. She had to pay back all the businesses that had purchased a spot at the festival through court order and lost her business. Then tried to sue us and blame us for the whole catastrophe, but it didn't go far. Before you say it's sad she lost her livelihood, firstly, she should have canned that event there and then. It doesn't take an organizer to see this was in no way going to be successful. Secondly, we found out through industry people that she had done this before, but got away with it, so fuck her. She tried to personally sue me as well, which didn't go far either, but still wasted a lot of my time. 4. When I was around 10 years old, I went to this summer camp for around 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. It took place in our town's park district. Basically, there were about 30 kids in total, and everyone was divided into groups of around 5 kids. Each group got their own counselor. There was one kid, I won't say his name for obvious reasons, so we will just call him Id. Id was a different kid. He did have anger issues, as well as he did not understand what was right from wrong too well. I think he had a slight mental disability, so he was given his own personal counselor to be near him at all times. Despite the counselor's best effort, it really was just a pain to deal with a 5'5", 350-pound kid. Id really liked to torment anyone that he saw lower than him. Anyone that was either too quiet or too small, he deemed himself better. The problem started when I decided to bring a deck of cards to camp to play BS. For those who don't know what it is, it's a game about bluffs. I was at the time really close with his sister. She was the best kind of person to be around. While in the middle of a game with a couple of other people, he walked up and asked if he could join. This wouldn't have been a problem, but we were doing a mini tournament. We told him that he would have to wait until the game to join. He did not take too well to this. He walked away and we thought that was the end of it. He came back a few minutes later and splashed the table with some kind of Kool-Aid mix. Everyone was pissed at him for getting everyone wet and sticky with the drink, but he also ruined my cards. This was just the beginning with all the little things he would do to piss me off throughout the years. A different incident a few weeks later, we were at the local pool. At our pool we have a grass area for all the summer camps and people who want to eat out of the food court. I came back to my backpack with all my stuff spread out around the back, and even inside of a back area that was covered in pine needles and wood chippings. It was a literal pain to get all of my things together. I hope you can see what kind of person that he is so far. The final straw took place in my freshman year in high school. He decided that he had not gotten enough out of me. By that point he had physically assaulted, vandalized my things, stolen from me, but I have had enough. He came up to me with someone that I was acquainted with but not really friends with. This changed it to me hating his guts. They wanted me to do some stupid task to prove I was a loyal slave. I refused, and they did their usual threats. I decided to start planning. In November 2017, a few months after that incident, I put my plan into action. I went to my class that day. We were doing football for PE, so this wouldn't make it too hard. I pretended to be extremely cocky, as I had 5 years of football experience before this, but played like trash, because I was really garbage at football despite what I just said. I called out Id and started instigating an argument. I made him so pissed after telling him he was playing it wrong. He screamed at me throughout the locker room. In our school, when you leave the locker room, you usually wait on this long ramp leading into the main hallway until the bell rings. Near the bottom where you are supposed to wait, there is a camera that can see up the hallway and to the main hall. The security likes to keep people at the bottom, and to keep people from leaving early. So this made it easier. I went up the ramp and talked shite about him under my breath, but just loud enough to let him hear it. He got pissed. He came up and pinned me against the wall I was next to, and the dish acquaintance came up to help Id. They both started telling me that I will never be anything, but all it took was one quip from me. At least I can play football properly. Id just then, in front of several classes, slapped me. Then the douche nailed me in the stomach. I was holding onto the wall to not fall over, but I knew I did it. You would think that no one would give a damn about a game in PE, but you'd be wrong. It took a lot for me to not yell in pain, but it also took a lot to not fight back. As soon as the bell rang, I went to the dean in the school and explained everything. The kid also went there to try to make up some lie about me calling him a homophobic slur, but was a known liar, so he wasn't taken seriously. I remember an officer that worked in the building asking if I wanted to press charges, and I said no. I got picked up from school that day and changed my mind in the car ride home. I remember every little thing he did to make me miserable. The best part is, it was all recorded on camera. I did not see Id after that car ride as he got expelled, but I ran into Dush in school. I told the school not to be as serious on him, so he only got suspended for a week. He told me he wanted to fight me. I still remember the look on his face as I told him one simple line. I don't fight, especially when there can be proof of it. He was trying to look casual, but was clearly pissed. I smiled as I walked to my next class. This happened about 1.5 years ago, and I still regret nothing. If you take anything from this, look out for cameras. 5. This all happened to me during last year's summer. I'm from Romania, but I work in Germany because the monthly salary is significantly higher, so I have an overall better life there. Anyway, my mother's birthday was coming up and she really wanted the whole family to be together. She's a really sweet mom and I always loved her, so I called work to let my boss know I will be gone a few days to see my mother. He agreed to let me go, so I boarded the first plane that was flying to Bucharest, capital of Romania, and I was on my way. I arrived at the airport and my mom picked me up and drove me home. During that night, the whole family gathered in the living room and we all just started recounting all kinds of memories and telling how our lives have been. The next day, I helped my mother prepare the food and set up the birthday decorations. The guests arrived a couple of hours later, including my grandparents, my aunt and uncle, and some other relatives. We all had a great time, but all good things must come to an end. Time flew by really fast and I had to get back to Germany. I wanted to call a cab, but my mom insisted that I take her car. It's a 2015 Chevrolet Impala, for those who are wondering. So I was on my way to the airport, driving through the crowded streets of Bucharest. I had finally gotten some free road ahead with no cars in sight, so I sped up a bit. Suddenly, a car pulled out in front of me from a parking lot and cut me off. I didn't have enough time to stop, so I hit the side of the car at about 30 kilometers an hour. At the wheel, there is a woman in her mid-30s who immediately got out of her car and started screaming at me. Both of our car's airbags were blown out, and because she had an older car than mine, Hers had suffered a lot more damage. Anyway, I get out of my vehicle, and she starts blaming me for the crash. I told her I was on the main road going straight ahead, and she pulled out in front of me, and I had no time to react, so I was not at fault. I look at my car to check the damage. Then I look at hers, and I notice that she actually had a small child in the back seat, maybe 2 or 3 years old, who was crying and screaming because she was scared and didn't know what was going on. When the woman notices I spotted her kid, she turns red and just stares at me for a minute without saying anything. I was like, "WTF, you okay?" And all of a sudden she was extremely happy, I swear. It was like she was on drugs or something. She admits it was her fault, and we proceed to exchange insurance information. And a few seconds later, she jumps back in her car and speeds away. The laws here in my country are pretty harsh, especially when it comes to a hit and run. You can get your driving license suspended for up to 90 days, and a fine of up to 3,000 liu, about $715. So I was just thinking, no, there is no way she's doing this. But oh, she was. So I get in my car and begin to chase her, while I was on the phone with the police. She was going maybe 80 or 90 kilometers an hour in a 50 kilometer an hour zone, and running every red light like she was in Need for Speed or something. I obviously didn't want her to get away, but at the same time I was trying to drive as safely as possible. So I had to let her go, but at least I memorized her license plate. The police managed to identify her and she got arrested. Apparently she was wanted for 2 other hit and runs, and she had a criminal record. Not only that, but because she had a toddler in the car when she crashed into me, her child was taken away from her for 1 year. I definitely don't think she deserved all of this, but you don't mess with the Romanian police. In the end, I guess you can say I got my revenge, and I hope the lady got her life right. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream number 21. And big thanks to everybody for all the wonderful, wonderful feedback you left me on Sunday's video. I didn't see one negative comment. I'm very pleasantly surprised. Well, I'm not surprised, you guys are all sweetie pies. But, there's usually some new people that come along and go, and they're just generally quite grumpy. But, nope, all positive comments. You all seem to enjoy it, so I shall do another one. Don't know when, but I'll do another one at some point. I'm hoping for neckbeards this Sunday. So either on Tuesday or the Sunday after that, we'll get the next Impractical Parents video up. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.